loan forgiveness. There's been a lot of changes to the program, especially the loan forgiveness. And what we plan to do today is to go over a lot of questions that we have been asked, and we hope to answer all of them thoroughly, and to give some advice and some guidance of what we recommend here as well. My name is Justin Major. I am not your speaker today. Our speaker today is Chris Levy. He has been leading the charge here at Pursuit since day one. He has, I'm sure many of you who've been on previous webinars have heard him explain the program, explain the process of the application, and how Pursuit here is what we're here to help you. We're here to make this process as easy as possible. And our number one goal here for you is to have 100% loan forgiveness. So we're hoping that with this webinar, it allows you guys to have that possibility. Also, too, what we'll go through again is kind of quickly discuss who Pursuit is and what we normally do on a day-to-day basis, pre-COVID. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Chris Levy. Chris?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. What we've done here is we've accumulated a lot of questions over the past week or so that people have been submitting in order to get answered here. We hope that we try to answer as many questions as we could. We received over 150 questions submitted as part of this webinar. We've taken the top ones and the most frequent ones. A lot of them were repetitive, and we put them into this webinar to hopefully answer as many questions as we can. As Justin mentioned, our goal is to make this process as simple as possible for you. I think the government is trying to make it as simple as possible for everybody. They've made a lot of changes over the past 3 months to make this program very simple and advantageous to the small business owner. Their real goal and what they want to see is 100% loan forgiveness for everyone. They want people to get back to work. They want people to be continuing operating their business as they were before the virus. So, everybody's here to try to help you and try to maximize that loan forgiveness amount. We cannot get to all the questions. Like I said, there's over 150. We have about 16 of them, which are the most frequent and most helpful questions, which will get answered today. On our website, we also have a frequently asked question page, which already has about 40 questions on there as well. So we like to think that somewhere your question has or will be answered. And if you continue to have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll get them answered as quickly as we can. Just to give you a little bit of background on Pursuit, we are a community-focused lender. We've been around since 1955 providing small business loans. And, we have a very innovative history of providing creative solutions to small businesses throughout predominantly New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. We have a lot of different programs that we utilize, specifically SBA programs. And obviously, we've been very much involved in the Paycheck Protection Program. We have approved over 6,500 loans for $475 million. So we're helping lots of small businesses throughout the country hopefully recover from this pandemic and have that access to capital in order to get through this. So let's jump into some of the questions that we have here. I'm going to have Justin read the questions, and then I'll provide the answers here.
Alrighty. So, Chris, one of the most common, most broad question that we receive is what should the borrowers do before they apply for loan forgiveness?
So the best advice that I can give everyone is to take advantage of the resources available to you, not only provided by Pursuit, but also provided by the SBA. Please, before you do anything, read and review all the material that are available. Most specifically is that loan application form itself and the instruction sheet provided by SBA. This will really answer the majority of questions that people have. It really goes step by step into how to calculate the various loan forgiveness categories, what documentation is needed, and how to go about compiling that information and submitting it to the lender. So definitely read those things. Take advantage of our website. Like I mentioned before, we have over 40 frequently asked questions already on our website that are available for you to assist in obtaining full loan forgiveness and understanding the requirements of the program. And our website also has a detailed loan forgiveness guide with all the various documentation and sources from SBA in regards to the specific parameters there. So the number one thing that, the first step that everybody should take is reviewing these resources and taking advantage of them to make sure that you're fully on board with what the rules are and have a basic understanding of them before you go into submitting a forgiveness application.
Thanks, Chris. I actually got asked this next question today. So there was that point in time, I think it was June 5th, where the SBA had extended the forgiveness cover period from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, and loans that were approved on June 5th and forward automatically enrolled in that. But prior to that, they had the 8 weeks. Is there anything that the borrower needs to do to get that 24 weeks? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is probably our most frequently asked question. If you were approved prior to June 5th, and all the loan documentation and all the narrative coming from us and from SBA at that time was that it was an 8-week forgiveness period, that was changed. And the best thing about that change is that it was retroactive, so that all loans as part of the PPP program will have that 24-week loan forgiveness period. And there is nothing that the borrower needs to do in order to qualify for that extended period. So there's no need to submit a request to us to extend it. When you apply, you will have an option of choosing an 8-week or 24-week period. In our opinion, there's no reason not to choose 24 weeks. It just gives you much more flexibility. Even if you did spend all the money in 8 weeks, it really makes no difference. So everybody is going to have those 24-week forgiveness period and be able to utilize that more flexible time period for obtaining that loan forgiveness and utilizing the loan proceeds in order to spend them on forgivable expenses.
Great. Another important question has been, is there a certain time period or a certain date that the borrower would need to start uploading documents for their loan forgiveness?
So one thing that we've done in Pursuit, any borrower that has already been funded with us, we've created a share file document storage portal where the borrower can upload their information to that portal in regards to the loan forgiveness. We did that really just as a benefit to the borrower to keep themselves organized, to have the documentation in one central place that both they and us as the forgiveness lender would have access to. So, that portal is available for people to upload documents. There is no requirement that you have to upload them throughout the forgiveness period or upload them right away. You can wait until the very end when you formally apply for loan forgiveness. So it's there for your convenience. You don't have to do it, but you can do it.
Chris, if someone got a loan through Pursuit and hasn't received maybe that email link to the share file, what should they do?
We do send them out in batches over, course of a few days. So you may not get it right away, but if you haven't received it within a couple weeks of funding of your loan, please reach out to us. The email address that you can email for that is loanforgiveness@pursuitlending.com, which is all on our website in detail at the end of this webinar as well. So, that's the email address. You can submit any additional questions you have, or if you have any issues with ShareFile, you can go through that email address. The other part about uploading documents, we're going to get into some of what the requirements are, but be sure to review that loan forgiveness application. That details what specific items are needed so that you know what exactly needs to be uploaded.
I guess it's probably the most important question here is, when can I apply for loan forgiveness? Everybody is eager to know and want to have the 100% loan forgiveness.
Yep. So we know that everybody really wants to get that forgiveness taken care of. Everybody's Excited to get the loan forgiven and not have to worry about the PPP any longer. The main issue is that SBA has yet to release any of the protocols related to how they will accept forgiveness applications. So being completely frank, even if you filled out the form, gave us all the documentation, and we had it available, there's nothing that we would be able to do with it. SBA has not given us as the lender guidance on how to submit things or what the exact process would be for them to provide the loan forgiveness. So at this point, we're not accepting any forgiveness applications. We want to make sure that we understand exactly what SBA is looking for so that you submit the complete needs of us, including the application and documentation, and that we're doing so in a format that is most efficient for you. So we're not accepting anything just yet. Once we know exactly what format SBA will want things in and what documentation they're going to require us to submit, then we will open up our forgiveness portal. And again, we're going to make it very simple. It'll be online, easy to fill out. And, again, we want our business owners to focus on running their business and operating that day to day and getting things back going. We don't want you to have this cloud over your head about forgiveness. So we are asking you to remain patient. We know everybody wants to get the forgiveness taken care of. But unfortunately, we're still waiting on some more information from SBA on how exactly this is going to be done. So it is a waiting game a little bit, but we ask you to be patient. And again, everybody's trying to make this as simple as possible. So we're getting there, and as soon as we're able to accept and process forgiveness applications, we will do so.
Right. Chris, I think you answered part of this question already, but as the borrower has already received the PPP loan, I think everyone is aware now of the SBA Form 3508, which is that loan forgiveness application. Should they be filling that out right now? Should they submit it? What should they be doing?
Yeah, so I think that this form and the instruction sheet that goes along with it are very important forms. I advise everybody to review those forms so you understand what is going to be required and how you're going to document that. But at this time, there's no reason to fill out the form, submit it to us. Again, we're going to have, as I mentioned, that simple online application, so you're going to be able to fill it out electronically. It'll go through the calculations with you and make sure that you have everything squared away. So no need to jump the gun and try to fill it out at this point. But again, I really encourage people to review the form and especially the instruction sheet because it provides a lot of good information about how the SBA views the loan forgiveness process and what the requirements are for applicants in regards to what documentation they're required to submit and also what documentation they're required to hold on to in the future.
Right, so as part of that SBA Form 3508 and what the SBA may require and what we require, do we know exactly what documents will be required for the application, the loan forgiveness application?
Yep, so obviously you will have to fill out that SBA Form 3508, which will be part of our online forgiveness application. You will also need to provide supporting documentation, which is going to be your payroll records, utility payments, mortgage statements, to show the figures in the forgiveness application and support them. Many people ask, well, what specific payroll records do I have to provide? The answer is pretty simple. Whatever you provided as part of your loan application is going to be the same documentation you require and submit at this point as part of the loan forgiveness. So if you provided a third-party payroll report, IRS Form 941, W-2s, whatever it was that you utilized in order to apply for the loan in the first place for payroll, that's the exact same type of documentation that you're going to provide for the loan forgiveness. So the documentation requirements for payroll remain exactly the same. In terms of the other types of things, the non-payroll expenses that can be included in forgiveness, these are going to be your utilities, your rent, and your mortgage interest. You're going to have to provide a copy of the statement. You're going to have to provide a copy of the canceled check. Basically anything that's going to prove that you did have an expense and that it was paid. So, for a utility statement, that's pretty simple. You're going to get your bill from, say, National Grid or Verizon. You're going to provide a copy of the check or statement showing that that bill was paid. and then that'll be eligible for loan forgiveness. What I really recommend to people and to think about in order to make this documentation process as simple as possible is to really take advantage of the payroll aspect of it and the 24-week forgiveness period. When your loan amount was calculated, it was based on 2.5 months of your average monthly payroll. So essentially 10 or 11 weeks of payroll. This loan forgiveness period, which starts on the date that your loan was funded, extends out 24 weeks. So it's significantly longer than what your loan amount was calculated on. You should, if all things have been done right and then your business is back reopened, you're going to have enough payroll during that full 24-week period in order to obtain full loan forgiveness. So my recommendation to keep it easy on yourself is to just focus on that payroll first. And if you have to add those ancillary expenses, those non-payroll rent, utility, mortgage interest, then you can do so. But that just adds a lot to the documentation requirements. So I would really focus on those payroll records and getting that as high as you can to cover the forgiveness amount and your full loan amount, and then move on from there if you have to. I think that for a small business, that's going to be the easiest and most efficient way to limit the documentation requirements.
So, Chris, there are a few factors that can affect loan forgiveness. Originally, the program had stated that if you did not use 75% of the PPP funds towards payroll costs, you would not be eligible for loan forgiveness. There was a change in May or June that stated that now it would be, I think it was June, it would be 60. You have to use 60% towards the payroll costs. But, if they don't go up to 60% in payroll costs, are they still eligible for loan forgiveness?
So that's a very good question, Justin, and one that we get a lot of. There is not any detriment if you do not reach that minimum 60% payroll threshold. You would still be eligible for loan forgiveness. Obviously, it's not going to be the full amount of the loan, but you will be eligible for as much as you spend. I put in a little example here so you can kind of see how the numbers work out. Let's assume that you obtained a PPP loan for $100,000. Unfortunately, you were only able to spend $54,000 on payroll during that 24-week covered period. So you did not meet the 60% requirement for that threshold of payroll. You still will be able to get loan forgiveness for the $54,000 spent on payroll. That equates to 90% of the requirement, which means for the non-payroll costs, you will be limited to 90% of those as well. So in this example, you would typically have $40,000, which you would have up to spend on non-payroll costs. Because you didn't meet that payroll 60% requirement, this is going to be limited to 90% as well, which would reduce the non-payroll costs up to a maximum of $36,000. So this would bring the total loan forgiveness eligibility down to $90,000, which is 90% of the loan amount. So whatever proportion that you are able to spend on payroll, that gets reflected as well in the non-payroll costs. So if you can't meet that minimum threshold, don't be alarmed. You still will be able to obtain some forgiveness, although it obviously won't be the full amount of the loan.
On that SBA Form 35 away loan forgiveness application, they ask you to put the pay for each employee. Are they asking for the gross or net pay for each employee?
Yes, so this is a question that we received a lot during the original application process. Obviously, employers have the gross amount, which is what the salary is that they pay, and then the net amount is the check that ends up being given after you account for the payroll taxes which the employer pays on behalf of the employee to the government. The calculation for loan forgiveness is based on the gross pay, so you can utilize that full amount that the employer pays when calculating the forgiveness amount. The one thing to be aware of, though, the maximum forgivable amount per employee is $46,154, which is 24 weeks of an annualized figure of $100,000. As you may remember, as part of the original application, the maximum that an employee could qualify for is $100,000. That $100,000 is based on their gross pay. Any health insurance, retirement, or other benefits that are included can be go above and beyond that amount. But that is the maximum amount that each individual employee was able to qualify for originally as part of the application. And the same thing is true for the forgiveness. The most that each employee can make is 24 weeks of that $100,000 maximum.
Okay, this is for companies that have employees. What if you're a sole proprietor?
That's a very good question, Justin. We'll get to self-employed people in a little bit more detail in a second, but they are limited to a maximum of $20,833. So owners are not subject to the same rules as the employees. It is a little bit different. So employees maximum $46,154. Owners maximum $20,833.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun there. So another factor that could potentially affect loan forgiveness is what if there's a reduction in hours per week, or considered the reduction in hours per week is a reduction in salary.
Yes, so this is a question that we've received a lot, and received a lot of different iterations of. We've had examples of somebody who went on maternity leave, so they may have missed a few weeks, or an employee who may have contracted the virus or sick and was out for a few weeks, or somebody who just wasn't comfortable coming back to work, but then did later on. So the qualifications for the loan forgiveness are obviously stipulated on not reducing payment to employees. However, this is only based on a 25% reduction in the employee's salary or hourly rate. So just because somebody worked fewer hours does not mean that they were paid a lower rate. So the total amount of their paycheck may be less, but as long as that hourly rate was not reduced by more than 25%, this is not considered a reduction and would not impact the borrower's loan forgiveness.
This is kind of a part two to that question here. Is forgiveness impacted if payroll cost goes down during a 24-week period due to the number of current payroll hours?
Nope, the same type of answer as the last question, that the forgiveness is only impacted if there's more than a 25% reduction in the employee's hourly rate. Working fewer hours is not considered a reduction in salary and won't impact loan forgiveness. So, for example, if you had, say, a restaurant business and you reduced your hours because it was only takeout, and you may have had an order from the local government that you couldn't stay open past 8 p.m. So you may have continued to pay your employees the same, say, $15 an hour that they were making before, and that continued, but they went from working 8 hours a day to 6 hours a day. There's no impact on your loan forgiveness amount there. It will not be reduced because of that.
So you have briefly touched on it before, but for all those self-employed individuals out there, how do they calculate the owner compensation payment?
So SBA has utilized this term, owner's compensation replacement, as the amount that a self-employed individual who essentially pays themselves through the profits of the business, how they're able to obtain loan forgiveness and how that is calculated. We've received a lot of questions about these types of individuals, and there seems to be some confusion about it. And the confusion lies because this is rather simple. Essentially, a self-employed individual is not going to have to submit any documentation for their forgiveness. It's going to be automatically calculated based on the 2019 net profit, which is the same calculation that was used to determine the loan amount. So this owner's compensation replacement, the specific amount, is 2.5 months of the company's net profit for 2019. If you remember from your original application, if you are a business filed on Schedule C, this is line 31 of that statement. That's the net profit. And then in order to get that, you divided it by 12 to get your monthly amount, and then multiplied it by 2.5 times to get your loan amount. That same calculation is going to be used for the loan forgiveness. So essentially, your loan amount equates to the loan forgiveness amount, and we already have that figure documented because that was the amount included in the application in the first place. For a partnership or LLC to have self-employment income, this is on the K1 of the 1065, which is filed, and it's line 14A, which is that self-employment income figure. Again, this documentation is something that we already have as part of the application. It's how that amount was calculated in order to determine the loan amount, and the same is going to be true for forgiveness. Again, I hate to say that it's very simple, but it is. It essentially creates an automatic 100% loan forgiveness for those self-employed individuals. There isn't really much more that needs to be done in order to document that.
So, Chris, I'm going to ask you to almost repeat yourself because it does seem too good to be true in this situation. The self-employed individuals, they don't have to provide any documentation to prove that they've been paying themselves with that new 60% payroll.
Correct. The calculation is going to be based entirely on the net profit reported in 2019. There's not going to be any additional documentation that's required for this. Again, we already have it, and that amount is essentially automatically approved. The additional to that, the utility, mortgage interest, rent, they're already kind of incorporated into that owner's compensation replacement. So there, again, is nothing additional in terms of documentation that somebody is going to have to provide. It's going to count automatically. You'll notice that the maximum amount that a self-employed individual could receive was $20,800. And again, that's the maximum forgiveness amount. So those numbers go hand in hand, and that's kind of the reason for them. So again, SBA is making this rather simple. There isn't much in terms of documentation requirements that's needed in order to obtain forgiveness as a self-employed individual.
So besides the PPP program, there was another program that the government put out called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL. Chris, is that, I'm going to actually add a little question to this. Is that Pursuit? Does Pursuit administer that, or is that someone else? And, will the EIDL impact the loan forgiveness for the PPP loan?
Yep, so the EIDL program is administered directly by SBA. It is not done through Pursuit. That is something that the business would have applied for directly with SBA on their own. The SBA provided an advance up to $10,000, which was not to be repaid. That was essentially a grant to businesses who applied for that. What SBA has done is they want to be sure that people aren't double dipping essentially, and that if you're getting the EIDL advance, you're also not going to benefit from loan forgiveness on the PPP loan as well. So what ends up happening is the amount of the EIDL advance ends up reducing the maximum amount that can be forgiven as part of your PPP loan. So if you received a $5,000 EIDL advance, and let's say that you received a $50,000 PPP loan, and you were able to obtain full forgiveness because you spent it on eligible expenses during the cover period, you'd submit a forgiveness application for $50,000. The SBA would deduct that EIDL advance you already received and only forgive $45,000 of your PPP loan. That would leave $5,000 remaining that would need to be repaid as a loan. This can be repaid as a loan in monthly installments as part of your loan agreement. It can be repaid in full at any point with no prepayment penalties. So it does obviously add a little bit of a wrinkle where you're not getting two different grants from the government. Again, they're trying to maximize the amount of the grant that you can receive, and by doing so, it does limit the amount that can be forgiven on your PPP loan. But it is a 1% loan at an attractive rate, and it can be prepaid at any point. So it shouldn't have too much of an impact on a business, but it does mean that if you did receive that EIDL loan advance, that you are not eligible to obtain full loan forgiveness. It will be reduced by whatever the amount of the advance was.
So, Chris, we talked about what the maximum amount that the employer can pay the employee, which is at $46,154. We talked about self-employed individuals. What if it's an S corp and the two owners and they're each 50% shareholders? What can they pay themselves?
So any shareholders of a corporation, they first of all must be paid through payroll. Distributions don't count for S corporations in the SBA's guidelines on how to calculate loan amounts. It specifically references only the payroll figure. So it needs to be sure that it actually does go through payroll, can't be distribution or dividends. But again, like I mentioned before, for any owner, the maximum that they can receive as forgiveness is $20,833. That is the maximum. Again, it is different for an employee, but these are the rules that SBA has put into place. And essentially, the rationale behind it and what they've talked about in their various interim final rules is that they did not want this program to end up being a windfall for business owners. They wanted to make sure that the funds were to keep people employed and keep people off unemployment. So that's the reason why there is a difference in the maximum amount of forgiveness available for owners compared to employees.
So this program is offered to many different industries, many different entity types, profits, not-for-profits. Is there anything specific for the businesses that were not-for-profits that they need to do that pertains to loan forgiveness?
No, there's actually nothing different for a nonprofit at all. So this is probably the simplest question that we'll get. Nonprofits are treated the same way that any for-profit businesses. They follow the same rules, same guidelines, and all the same documentation and forms are required. There's nothing additional that a nonprofit has to do and nothing less. So everybody's treated the same in the PPP loan.
So now that we know that everyone is eligible for that 24-week period, for that cover period to use the funds, can you submit the application for loan forgiveness before the end of that 24-week period if you use all the funds?
Yes, you can. There is no requirement that you have to wait the full 24 weeks in order to apply. Once you reach that maximum, feel free to go ahead, get your documentation in order, and begin the application process. Personally, I would recommend waiting a little bit. Just make sure that if you're able to exceed it further than the loan amount, go ahead and do so, just in case you may have missed something as you were submitting the application, or you may be missing any documentation. Just having it go above and beyond is never going to hurt you in obtaining loan forgiveness. So you may be better off to wait a week or two once you hit that mark, just to be sure that you have your ducks in a row completely, and everything will absolutely be forgiven. The one thing, again, I'm going to harp on is that the SBA has not yet opened up forgiveness submissions yet. So we can't submit anything if we receive it from you. So again, just have to preach a little bit of patience here. And as soon as that forgiveness application becomes available, we are going to let everybody know. Again, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. And we really want you to continue to focus on running your business and not have to worry about PPP. So our real goal here is helping every business owner maximize the forgiveness and, again, get back to running the business. So those are all the questions that we had. We wanted to harp on some of the most frequently asked things and the most important questions that we received. But if you have additional questions, again, that email address is loanforgiveness@pursuitlending.com. And we'll try our best to answer any that we can. If you're a business that hasn't applied for PPP yet, we are still accepting applications. We're going to be accepting them through the end of this month. So if you have any friends or other business owners that haven't applied yet, we're still accepting applications, and we encourage people to do so. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any further questions. As soon as we have more information from SBA on how the forgiveness application process is going to work, we're going to announce that, and we'll have it all on our website for an easy submission process. So thank you again for taking the time to listen to us today. We hope that we're able to answer everybody's questions. This recording and the slides will be posted online and will be emailed to you, so you will have access to them. And we will continue to add to our frequently asked questions page on our website. So definitely bookmark that, pay attention, revert back to it, and we're going to continue to try to answer as many questions and help as many of you as we possibly can. So again, thank you for taking the time today. I encourage everybody to stay safe, and good luck with everything, and we'll be back in touch shortly.